Let us now see the topic of writing for general public. Now, we have already studied in the last few particular lectures that how what is scientific writing, or how scientific writing is different from general writing, how to identify the audience, how to change your tone or change your language according to the audience after you find out. Now, let us now consider the particular part. If I want to write an science article or maybe a research paper or research journal, but in such a way that it can be easily understood by a normal person or a person who is not from a science, you can say, background. Okay. Now let us consider the introductory part over here. So when we consider with respect to the communication over here, as when we are going to inform or we are going to you can say give the information to general public, so we are actually communicating ourselves with the public. So when we consider over here key that communication from one person to another, now that requires a special you can special skill. Okay. Now why we consider that communication is a type of special skill? Because this will allow a person to reach a new height. Now it may be with respect to a studies, or it may be with respect to a career as well. Okay. Then along with that, sometimes one may have to communicate transformative data to the general public. Like for example, you have or a person has made a you can say good discovery in maybe you can say vaccine, okay, related to HIV, and that vaccine is going in trial and errors and showed that in clinical trials has a very good impact, and it has reduced the chances of HIV. Okay. So here we need to consider that there will be the people who are going to read your article who are not from the science background. Now it will be a difficult task to them if they read such an article which contains many technical words, which are in-depth words. Now why is this so? Because there might be some people who are not, or who are not studied basic science also. So in that case, if there is very much too much technical knowledge, definitely it will be very, very difficult for them to understand. Now that will be you can say one point. Another point also we need to consider that a person who is in a science background or science field, okay, that person is competing with other, you can say, people from the same community, that is science community only. Now that will be maybe for a grant of money, that is the person wants, or you can say funding for his or her project. So what can be done? The person is going to appeal. That is, the person is going to turn the, you can say, tides in his or her favor. So what will happen is those particular investors or whatever the parties are present, they will get interested in that project, even though these persons do not have any experience in that, you can say, field. So to summarize this particular slide, so learning how to capture the essence of work and communicate to those who are not from the discipline, that is non-scientific community, can either make or break the ability to pursue research goals. Now let us assume that a person is very well, you can say, a you can say scientific person. He has a great amount of knowledge, but if that person is not able to communicate a basic, or you consider a science topic or content to general public, so what is going to happen? That will demotivate the researcher. So that will make that person, you can say unhappy. Why? Because he failed or she failed to convey the message, maybe her work, to the general public. So that should not happen. So what can we do? Is there any solution? Yes, there is. So Harmon and Gross in their 2010, they have given 6 suggestions. Now these suggestions are for those people, that is from the scientific community, who want their particular content to be read by the general public, understand by the general public. Now, why we are considering that? So that the people will get an idea what your content is and what you're trying to convey. So once the suggestions are incorporated in writing, so what it will help is it will bridge the gap, that is, it will close the gap between scientific writing, which is going to be published in academic journals, as well as the writing that will be carried out by generalized audiences. So person who has done a very well research, So that content will be published in academic journals. So there will be one sort of language. But that same content can also be published in newspapers, in science sections, but the language will be completely different. Why? Because the newspaper is going to be read by both the parties. That is, the people from scientific and non-scientific background. So here we are going to specifically see here in this topic what are the six suggestions, how these can help to improve the writing for general public. Okay, now this is also so for here one can begin to translate the complex ideas in the research, that is whatever scientific content are there, for those audience who do not even possess mastery of the subject matter. Now there is we can say a alert which I am disclaiming here that remember that even accomplished researchers from other fields of science may not be able to understand one's work fully. So let me take an example that I am a person of, you can say, neurobiology. So I am presenting a work who is with respect to neurobiology, neurochemistry, and all brain stuff, nervous stuff. Now person who is maybe a botanist or maybe somewhere like you can see in agriculture, that person definitely will not be able to understand. There might be some terminologies, some concepts which might be aware, but technical will not be the one because those are from different disciplines. So definitely, although they are both are from scientific community, okay. So, but the persons who are from botany and agriculture will not be able to understand a person who is giving a lecture or presenting the work in neurobiology. So now let us study or see what are the different six suggestions which are going to make a scientific writing effective from a general audience point of view. Suggestion number one. Suggestion number says that to follow a simple plan wherein there are three structures: context, problem, and a solution. So, whatever you are going to present, that whole document should convey these three messages. There should be a content, there should be a problem which it needs to be solved, as well as what is the solution you are providing to the problem. So, public audiences, like if you consider maybe now as you're all from science background, so your parents may not be from the science background. So, similarly, other people are also not as interested in your research paper or review article, or maybe the references as well, as compared to scientific, we can say, areas or scientific people. So, these elements should be certain, but I will consider that these elements are necessary. Okay, these elements are necessary, that is key, review article references are necessary. So in such a case, what to do if I still want to convey the message, the review message or the references to the public? What shall I do? So definitely these are the three tips which are present here. First is, my the document should focus upon the background information about the subject. It may be, see, if you're working in nanotechnology, you should give an idea of what exactly is nanotechnology it is, but in a simple language. You cannot go into highly technical language. Then this other part, or it should also contain what issue you are trying to confront, you are trying to convey, or you want to address. And the third one is what solution has been found out to the problem which you are going to tackle it. So all of these three should mingle with each other. Okay, all of these three should mingle with each other so that they will form something a relevant structure. Okay. Now with that being said, let us come to the suggestion number two. Suggestion number two says give a article attractive title and a headline which is going to convey main message in a plain, simple, simplistic language. So over here, title. So now what is a title? If you remember, you have for some internal projects you had to search research papers. So research papers, once you open the one which is in bold towards the top in huge handwriting, that is a title. So title is to attract or tempt, which we call in scientific language as entice. So it is not to inform you, but it is going to attract you. So title you can consider like a headlines of a research paper. Okay. So over here, I will suggest the researchers, as you are the young budding researchers, avoid turning a title into mini abstract. The abstract is like a summary of the entire research. So title should not be like that. It should be like in one or two, I can say, sentences. Now I have given two, I can say, an example here. Okay, so the example says homogenize nickel oxide nanoparticles for improved hole transport in inverted perovskite solar cell. Now, from here, if I am a I'm from a non-science background, I will not understand what is homogenize. I will not even know what is this. I might have heard nanoparticles. I know what is solar cell it is. I know what is transport, but I don't know what is improve or transport. I don't know what is inverted perovskite. Is it some chemical? So the title is great, but from whom? From a science person, that person will understand what it is. But the audience who do not study in that field of science, or rather forget the field of science, a general person will not be able to understand what it is. So, what can I do? So make it short and a very much you can say catchy. So over here I've given a very improved and a short version. So what I've given it is key modified solar cells packed with nitrous oxide nanoparticles for better transport facilities. It is going to convey the same message. But what I've done is key I have changed the language. So if I can say inverted perovskite solar cell, I have mentioned the term is modified solar cell. Now here it is said that solar cells have these nanoparticles. So what I've done is these solar cells contain nanoparticles. But for what? For improved whole transport. So I've mentioned for better transport facilities. So that is how the message should be conveyed to a general audience. Coming to suggestion number three. So the article should have but it should start with a fact or a situation or an anecdote which is going to build a bond between the you, that is you as a writer, and your reader. So this is the next step wherein key to introduce the problem or the discovery. Now in here, when you consider the to introduce the problem, there should be three particular, I can say, structures. One, a hook. Second, a background. Third, a new research. Now what means a hook? Hook over here means कि what particular you want to, मतलब why do you want to catch the audience's attention, and what is the purpose of grabbing their attention. The once you grab that attention, it's like a hook of which you want to, you can say, catch a fish. Now that hook is something which is going to attract the fish, so you put a bait there. So in this also scientific background, so hook is like a bait which is going to attract your general audience. Now once your audience is in on the hook, you give them a background about your subject, what is already done by other people, what is their outcome, and then you tell what is your research, what you have done, what you're planning to do, what expected results you're going to get. Now here the strategy is to grab and keep the attention of non-scientists. You do not want the non-science background people to just do not read your article. You want it to read, right? So what to do? Reel them or grab that attention with a situation or a story. Now this is already, but we have considered in the last part. If you know that audience is from a non-scientific background, how to do it. So what you need to do? You need to make a story or a situation which is going to be related to their, you can say, their life or condition or situation, because that will enable the people to connect in a very better way. So the delivery of information will be very much, you can say, simple too. Coming to suggestion number four. In the conclusion, just do not sum up what is you already done, but also connect or do put or do include what is the future of the project and what implications it may have. So in conclusion, it will cover up the 4 points. First is reiterate. Yeah, reiteration. Now, reiteration means what you have done. Say it again and again. What you have carried out, what is the result? Say it again and again. Second is wider significance. Now, why I'm saying reiteration? Because it will strike them in the mind of the audience ki, yes, this person had said this in the results or maybe a material method section. So that will allow the audience to think, and they will be like, oh yes, 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 that person had said this type of, you can say, information. Second is wider significance. Now wider significance means that ki how is the research going to advance scientific knowledge and it is going to have an impact on the society. Whether that project which is considered, is it going to have a impact coming to future work. Now research sometimes may not be complete. That means there might be some particular tasks or objectives which are left to be covered up. So is there any project which is going to be continued further, maybe in the same area or another area? Then coming to the last part is moral. Now, moral over here means ki the whatever the project was conducted, is it going to benefit the society or is it going to solve the problems? So, a general audience will definitely want to know. They are also curious how your work is going to impact them. Whether that article is going to be fit into their head, so it is not ephemeral, right? Or whether they are going to remember for their lifetime. Coming to suggestion number five. So over here, adjust the writing style by incorporating some technological terms. So, but also defining them. Incorporate informal language into a formal prose. That is convey, or sorry, convert. Along with that, use figures of speech. Let us see how. Usually, when it comes to scientific writing, there are only three specific figures of speech are actually considered. One is simile, that is something which is like similar cases. One is metaphor, and one is personification. Now, out of all of these, metaphor is the one which we need to focus upon more. Now, what is metaphor? Metaphor is used to make a comparison between your study and maybe other study, and it will also help the people to understand that previous persons had carried out the work, but there were some gaps which were left. Those gaps are covered up in this researcher, current researchers, you can say, article or maybe the information. So people may not know what power conversion efficiency it is. They do not know what it is. So instead, what can be done or what we can do is share the findings of the research. So that means explain or inform them, these are my findings. This is how I have performed and this is the results what I've received. Then what can be done? Take those results, compare with the real situation or condition. So all it is about relatability. The more you correlate the results with them, with the situation or condition, the better the audience is going to remember it. Now, it may also may give a long way towards ingratiating. Now, ingratiating here means it is intended to gain approval or favor. So it's like you want favor. Okay. So the more you correlate, the more you're favoring the audience to listen to you. The more the audience listens to you, the more they will get curious what your research is going to be. And coming to the last suggestion, adapt your tables and illustrations to a general audience by simplifications. Okay, so for general audience, don't allow visuals to make their own claims. Now, what does this sentence mean? If you put a bar graph, if you put any particular graph, don't allow or do not consider कि just by looking at the graph, the audience is going to understand what the graph is trying to say. No, it's a complete negative aspect over here because people will not understand what the graph it is unless and until you explain it to them. So don't allow visuals to make their own claims. So what do we need to do? Allow them to reinforce the text. That which means कि you highlight. If you have got, let us assume you have got high antimicrobial activity for maybe tulsi plant in ethanol. So highlight tulsi plant ethanol extract. So that will, when you circle that, the people will get curious. Oh, so there is something interesting in that person is highlighted. Then allow the person to explain what that highlighted text is going to be. So these are the three steps which are useful to transition visual from a scientific context to a public facing context. One is remove away technical jargon. Technical jargon over means difficult concepts. Now, if it is not possible to completely remove technical jargon, what can be done is put that word which is absolutely necessary. And just like over here, what I've done is jargon means difficult concepts. So this can also be done. You put a particular complex word next to it, put the meaning. That is one way which can be done. Or another way is you can put an asterisk mark or some mark over here, and in the footnote you explain what is the meaning of it is. Okay, so remove technical jargon which are completely understood by specialists. Not always. Sometimes, if it is possible to keep it, it is allowed. Include textual and visual tools, which is going to help them understand. So you can consider a graph. You put a graph, and in that text you mention, okay, 36% is high, 2% is low. So you put that. So it will help or recollect the persons remember better. So it can be color, it can be legend, it can be labels, it can be others also. But one thing I will make highlight over here is make sure that everything is in plain or simple language. It is not too difficult for the people to understand. You want people to look at your research. You do not want the people to ignore your research. Okay. So with that being said, we end with this particular topic of how to write for a general audience as well. Thank you so much.